Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This is the top 15 Spider-Man books in my collection. Like I said with the X-Men video, it was really hard to narrow down the top 15. There were several that have been left out that I'm sure people were like, oh my god, how could you leave those out and all that. And I'm sticking with Spider-Man. I'm not really going into like Ultimate Fallout with Miles Morales or any of the other newer things that have come out, because those are just above my head. This is again what I feel in my collection that stand out the most when it comes to the top 15 Spider-Man books. All right, so it's going to be no shock that it's practically all, if not all, which I think it is all, Amazing Spider-Man. So let's start off with the last one, the last number 15. Amazing Spider-Man number 122. I think this is an incredibly important book and warrants its place on this list because it is the death of the Green Goblin. This is the death of the Green Goblin after he killed Gwen Stacy. This is the death of the Green Goblin, Spider-Man's arguably greatest foe. All right, he's come back many times in many forms. Many variants of him. He's been in the movies recently with the Spider-Man No Way Home. Brought back Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin from the Sony Spider-Man book. Well, all Sony. The original Spider-Man trilogy. So he's definitely an important character, and his death in this, I think, is monumental. It was a big deal for me when I was reading Spider-Man, when I first got into Spider-Man years and years ago, decades ago. And wow, the Green Goblin got killed, and it was something else. And right underneath that, I think, or right above it rather, is this one. The death of Gwen Stacy. I mean, I've always liked the 122 more, but I understand that some people feel or have felt that this one has a little bit more meaning, and I can understand that. That's why I put it just a notch higher than the Green Goblin one, the death of the Green Goblin, because Gwen Stacy, I guess nobody saw that one coming. And especially back then in comics, that, oh my god, she's actually dead. It was probably a big shock to many Spider-Man fans back then. Amazing Spider-Man number 238. This was the Goblin that I liked the most, the Hobgoblin. And again, like with the Green Goblin, has come back in many different forms, many different Hobgoblins. It gets so convoluted, and sometimes I have to admit it's quite dumb. But the original one that you see here in that book, I think that book is, I think it's undervalued, to be quite honest. I mean, not that it has to be thousands upon thousands of dollars. That's not what I mean. But I think sometimes it's like, well, it's one of those modern ones. It's kind of overshadowed and all that. So here we have in this one, next one right up, Amazing Spider-Man number 42. This is the first appearance of Mary Jane in Cameo. You know, she's only on that last panel. She doesn't make her full appearance until the next issue, and she made her first cameo appearance in issue 42. 25, pardon me. But I think this one here is, I mean, the cover sucks. Let's just be honest with you. I don't like this cover. But I think this one has a little bit more meaning. It's not just because we see her face for the first time, which is very, very good, but it's also because she says that line. So that's why I think that one edges out more. I mean, it really is the Mary Jane issue that most people get. Next up, Amazing Spider-Man 300, first appearance of Venom. Again, a modern book. It's everywhere. The cover has been swiped so many times. Classic Todd McFarlane cover. Classic book. Like I said, first full appearance of Venom. I'd like to upgrade this one day. I don't think I could ever get rid of this copy because it has a bit more meaning to me. But I definitely like to get an upgrade of it. But anyway, this is a great book. And I thought the story was really, really cool. I read it over and over again. But yeah, for Venom fans, for Spider-Man fans, Amazing Spider-Man 300. Can't go wrong. Next up is another book that I have to upgrade. I have a 3.0 copy, and you know it's gone down considerably. So the idea of upgrading it becomes more and more likely. But again, I think it's an important book. Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1, the first appearance of the Sinister Six, where all Spider-Man's villains at that time, except for the Green Goblin, they all banded together and they're all going to make his life a living hell and team up, right? Great book. Here's another one that introduces a really good character that just wasn't a Spider-Man villain but became a Daredevil villain. I think you know what I'm talking about, but also has a very famous cover by John Romita. Here we have Amazing Spider-Man number 50. First appearance of the Kingpin. Definitely a classic. Definitely a must-have for a Spider-Man collector. Here we have Amazing Spider-Man number 2. The first appearance of the Vulture. Okay? It's a number 2. It's the first appearance of the Vulture, and this is a character that has come back in over the years. He wasn't just one of these characters that appeared and disappeared. He's been a thorn in Spider-Man's side from the early days, even making his second appearance a few issues later in issue number 7. And he's been around for a very long time. I think he was even... No, I got that almost confused with another villain, so apologize. Forget what I was about to say. But regardless, I think Amazing Spider-Man number 2 is definitely up there on anyone's list. Here we have another one. And he didn't make too many appearances in the Silver Age, or at least in the early Spider-Man books. This was the only appearance he made until he made his second appearance, I think, in issue 44. The first appearance of the Lizard. I think he was back then supposed to be a one-and-done character, I believe. Or did he show up in Giant Size? Not Giant Size. Did he show up in the annual? No, he didn't. For some reason, I thought he did for a moment. Yeah, I was right. He showed up once here, and then he didn't show up again until his second appearance was in issue 44. That's why issue 44 fetches a little bit more money. Not a whole lot more money than some of the other books surrounding it, aside from the number 50, of course. Next on my list, one I'd like to upgrade, Amazing Spider-Man number 9, the first appearance of Electro. This is one of my favorite covers from the old school or single-digit Spider-Man books. I love Electro, and I know they brought him into the movie universe with Amazing Spider-Man number 2. It was like, it was okay. It wasn't bad, but they did him some justice with No Way Home, which I thought was good. And the same thing with this character next. Another book I'd like to upgrade one day. Amazing Spider-Man number 4, the first appearance of the Sandman. I think this is great panels here. One of my favorites from the Spider-Man run. Now we're getting down to the last 4. Amazing Spider-Man number 129. Definitely a very, very important book and an iconic cover. You know, like what I was saying with the Amazing Spider-Man 50, one that's been swiped over and over and over again. Here we have another one that's been swiped over and over again and introduced the Punisher and the Jackal, if anyone cares. Here's a book I definitely have to upgrade sometime soon. It's actually on my 2024 list to upgrade. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it this year, but if I don't do it this year, it'll definitely be next year. Some say the Green Goblin is Spider-Man's arch nemesis. I would agree with that, but I definitely think Dr. Octopus is just below that. Amazing Spider-Man number 3, one of my favorite covers. A lot of those early Spider-Man covers I really liked, like the 9 I was saying, the 4, and number 3. First appearance of Doc Ock. Number 2 on the list, another book I want to upgrade. Amazing Spider-Man number 14, the first appearance of the Green Goblin. This is where it all started with him, and as you can see, he first started on a broomstick. And later, I think that 17, when he showed up again, that's when he got his glider. But definitely a big book for Spider-Man collectors. Now, before I get to number 1, which I'm pretty sure you all know what it is, I don't have an Amazing Spider-Man number 1. That's a book that's on my list. It's not on my 2024 list. It's not on my 2025 list. The way things have been going with that book keeps, going down. And so does this one, to be quite frank. So there's really no rush for me to go out and spend big bucks on it. I figure I would get a nice 4.0 when the time is right, when the price is right. So normally, Amazing Spider-Man number 1 would have taken the spot of Amazing Spider-Man 14. But one day that will be the case. But for number 1, my top Spider-Man book, I think it would be the top Spider-Man book for anybody to have in the collection, no matter what the grade. I have a low grade copy. Amazing Fantasy number 15. Maybe one day this will be upgraded. Not anytime soon, but maybe one day as prices continue to go down. But it's still a wonderful book to have. And for any Spider-Man fan that has goals in the future that they say, hey, and one day I would like to get the Ultimate Spider-Man book. The Ultimate Spider-Man book is definitely Amazing Fantasy 15. No matter what grade you can get. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop me a couple of comments if you want. And if not, that's fine. But stick around. There'll be more top 15 videos coming out over the next few weeks. So I hope you will tune in and watch. Take care, everybody.